Welcome to the Wingman Show. My name is Drew Brown, and my wingman, my man, the number one guy I know, Dr. Paul Thompson. What's up, brother? Welcome to the Wingman Show, where we're floating like butterflies and stinging like bees. Rumble, you two badass jet pilots, rumble. Welcome to the Wingman Show. My name is Commander Drew Brown. My wingman, my friend, my main man is Dr. Paul Thompson. How you doing, Brother Paul?
Commander Drew, I'm doing very well today. It's good to see you. We're going to have a good show. I like your hat. This looks like mine.
Thank you very much. U.S. Naval Aviation, that's what we're about. Well, we'll start off with a quote of the day. And the reason we do that is because my dad, who trained Muhammad Ali, Drew Bundini Brown, came up with the second most famous quote in the world. Float like a butterfly, sting like a bee. Rumble, young man, rumble. Well, we're going to start off a quote today with Paul's mom. What did your mom say, Paul?
You used to say this, not too much, but I noted it, I guess, the latter part of her life. She would say, many hands make light work. Many hands make light work. And that basically means that when people cooperate, tasks are easier. People today will say something, it takes teamwork to make the dream work. I've heard that a lot. So it's the same kind of thing. It's an older phrase. I think it comes from the 15th century or something. It's in literature here and there, but many hands make light work. Everybody basically cooperate and graduate, we would say in the Navy.
That's a great one.
That's
My dad came up with another one, and I love this one. It says, everyone sees, but only a few know. Everyone sees, but only a few know. And that's so true in so many things. Sometimes something looks way different than it really is. And that's kind of life. Well, this is Who in the Hell Are the Wingmen Anyway, part 3. This is Dr. Paul's and myself life through the U.S. Navy and how we got to the Wingman Show. And we're going to start off today because we just finished basic training in a T-28, and now we both got picked for jets, and now we're getting ready to go to jet training. So I'm going to start off with you, Paul. Tell me about your initial thoughts and reactions when you first went to fly jets.
I was excited at being selected to do that. When I came in, there was a transition in the training pipeline, what they did and what airplane you flew. So we were like our group was kind of in the beginning of it, so we really weren't sure what's going to happen. But I did pretty well, and I got selected for jet training. And they said you're headed off to Kingsville, Texas. No, where's that? Never heard of it. It's near the Mexican border. It's way in deep South Texas. And I was excited. I said, well, this is the next phase of life, next adventure. And that was going to be probably my greatest adventure. How about you? How did you fare?
Well, I got picked for jets that I couldn't believe. I didn't think I did well enough, but obviously I did. I got picked for jets, and they didn't send me to Texas, buddy. They sent me to Mississippi, Meridian, Mississippi. And I remember always saying, I'd never live in Meridian, Mississippi. Well, there's the N word, never. Usually I don't know what the hell I'm talking about. So I was in Meridian, Mississippi. And let me just tell you this. When I finally got to the base, I had to take the family there. We had officer housing. But man, when them jets were flying overhead, I got to tell you something, Paul. I was like, shit, that's the coolest stuff I've ever seen in my life. I hope I can do this. What did you first think about your first flights in a T-2 Buckeye? Because that was our primary jet trainer, wasn't it, Paul?
It was a primary jet trainer and kind of a excuse me, a big workhorse, a strong airplane, and it moved quick. It took a little while to get used to it. I thought that it was just exciting to be in a jet. I had a private license, but I was just flying like little stuff. Flying a T-28 was a big deal too because it was 10 times more powerful, at least, than the Cessna 150 I flew. So I thought that was a big benefit. And I was impressed by the size of it because I had actually had to ride in an Air Force T-37 like 4 years earlier, like the summer thing I was doing. And that was cool. But there's a picture of you. There's a picture of you standing next to your T-28 you showed last week, and you got a salute on. And you're not a little person, you're 6'5", and the airplane behind you, the rest of the T-28 is way above you. In a
Big.
T-37, not to insult anybody, and I don't mean this as an insult, but it's significantly smaller. You would be able to actually lean over and urinate in it if you wanted to. I'm not, no, and literally you could. It's different. It's a size difference. And I've been in them both. I used to instruct in T2, so I know a little bit about them. But it's a big size difference. So the size of the Navy trainers is just so much greater if you've been around different airplanes. No insult to the Air Force, our Air Force brethren and sister.
Well, don't say anything bad about Air Force pilots because there are only two kind of pilots in the world, Paul. Ones that fly off of ships and ones that wish they could. And we were the ones who flew off of ships.
Yeah.
Yes, that T2 Buckeye, boy, that was my first jet also. And I'll tell you what, I was a wide-eyed looking puppy because I could not believe I was doing all this. And once again, when I first looked in that cockpit, I was like, oh my God, there's 10 times more buttons and switches here. But once again, in 6 months, or when I finished T2s, I was like, hey, is there any more kind of buttons around here? But that was a real trip flying a jet in Meridian, Mississippi. Did you have any kind of issues in your flight training down in Kingsville?
Kingsville was, it was very challenging. Everybody had the same kinds of things. Most of the instructors were pretty good. It was kind of a weed out phase, at least in the early part. I had some very notable instructors that were fairly well known in the, I guess, in the Navy Marine Corps. They were, let's just say, they marched to the beat of a different drummer. So it took a while to figure out, what was going on, but it just seemed like the training was long. Everything seemed to take a long time.
Well, when I got to Meridian, Mississippi, let's be honest, Paul, we're two black pilots, and there were no other pilots that were black in Meridian, Mississippi training for jets. So I was once again the only black pilot. And I'll tell you, we talked about this the other day. We were now at the epitome of flying Navy jet training. So before, when we were flying T-28, you could go to helicopters, you could go to props and fly P3s. But when you're going into Navy jets, you're in a whole nother league. And I'll be honest with you, there were a bunch of people who didn't want to see me make it, Paul. It wasn't very easy flying jets in the Navy being a black man.
Yeah, I was by myself. There were two other guys who were there before me actually, and one was about to finish, and the other was just a few months away, which was interesting. They provided a lot of good information to me, and remained lifelong friends. One of whom is has passed away. The other we speak regularly. They're great benefit. But they talked about the same thing early on because we're I'm a little bit prior to you, so we're in the 1970s, not the 2017. This is 19 late 70s. Jimmy Carter is President Carter is the president. He's a new president. It's a while back.
Well, I'll tell you, I didn't have a great experience in Meridian. I was flying the jet, I was doing well, but there were some instructors who didn't want to see me make it. But I wanted to talk about one of the downs I got. And a down is when it's an unsatisfactory flight, and it was in formation. And I'll never forget, I was flying formation, I'm learning how to fly it, and I let the guy in front of me get below me. And this is the second time he just ripped the plane out of my hands and said, I got it, I got it. And that was very dangerous what I was doing. I mean, I wasn't that close to him, but you can't ever let that plane that you're rendezvousing on get out of sight. And I did that. So that was a down. And that was one that I truly deserved. But I will tell you this, every time something like that, an unset in an airplane that I got, I always excelled in that area. In other words, after that, I became one of the best formation flyers in my squadron. So that down really helped me because I got some extra training in it. What about you? What about
Yeah,
your
I got it down in formation too. You know, it was kind of a mental thing. I was kind of didn't like being too close to another airplane. That was totally psychological. And after I learned how to relax, I got over it. But I was actually making things harder for myself. And the instructors were trying to just kind of get you to relax. It was actually the easiest phase of all the training. And I made it harder, just psychologically. I made it harder. And when I was finally able to relax, it became very simple, and I got very very good at it.
Yes, you have to be very good in form flying if you're flying over that ship out in the middle of the ocean. Well, then after T2s, we both had to go to advanced jet training, and that was in the A4 Skyhawk. And that jet right there, it can do 720. That means it can turn around twice, two aileron rolls in 1 second.
Wow.
And that means that was a fast ass airplane. It was very small for me, though. You were talking about big airplanes. The A4 Skyhawk was extremely small. I had to have my knees up almost in my chest, and I had to kind of sign a waiver because I'm 6'5", and they said that if I ejected out of that A4, I probably would lose my legs. What'd you think about the A4? Because it was fast and it was badass.
Yeah, the A4 was a major step up. I got we used that in advanced training, and it was like I went to like the advanced squad, and it was like you moved to a new country. It was just totally different. It was quiet. The attitudes of the people were very very different. I thoroughly enjoyed. I enjoyed the airplane. Yeah, it was a tight fit. I'm not not as tall as you are. It's still a tight fit. If I think it was designed for someone, the ideal person, about 5'8", 5'9".
Right.
I think about 5'9". Because if you look at the original astronauts, for example, none of them were tall. They seem like that on TV, but they're not. I think just about all of them are probably well under 6 feet. So when the canopy would come down, sometimes it came close to your shoulders. Now, one of my friends who was finishing, one of the guys, my friend, he was massive. He was surprised he got into the airplane. He was like my height, but another foot wider. So it was a tight fit. And if you had to eject out of it, I think I'd have been okay, but just by maybe a quarter of an inch. But it was a it was a single engine airplane, very powerful, extremely powerful, and a joy to fly. I enjoyed flying it, and I did quite well. I did quite well.
That's great. Well, when I got in the A4, I went through training, and I believe I got another down and maybe one other, and they tried to kick me out of flight training, but it had nothing to do with my flying. And I had to go through a hell of a lot of stuff. I had to take these downs all the way up to an admiral. And because, one thing I loved about the military is that they had the chain of command. And that means that you have to go up to the next person who's higher than you, ask what you want. If they say no, then you can go to the person higher. You can't go straight to the top. And because I wanted to fly so bad and I knew that they did me wrong, I was ready to take this all the way up to the president. And that was the chain of command. So what happened is I had to go and show them that they were racist. And I don't mean everybody at all, because the Navy wasn't racist. There were people in the Navy who were racist. But what I did was I had this Marine jet pilot who was my friend. They were going to have this big ball at a country club. And I knew this country club didn't, this is Mississippi. I heard that they didn't allow black people to join the club. So I got my other pilot, Tom, to get on the other line of a telephone call when I called them, and I acted like I was some high rating Mississippi colonel or something that was just wealthy, and I wanted to move to Meridian, and I wanted to find out if they allowed colored people to actually join the club. And the guy said on the phone, "Oh, hell no, we don't, but we let them serve us." And so I had somebody who could show that they did have racism in that area. But worse than that, in my squadron, Paul, you'll love this. One of the tests, I don't know if you remember this, but you have to have good eyesight. And so, when we used to see slides, they would always throw something funny in there to keep it from being so boring. Well, they had a slide of 10 Ku Klux Klansmen and one Harlem Globetrotter. And they asked if we could pick out the black guy. and that was a very racist slide they had. And I showed that also. Make a long story short, they sent me to Beeville, Texas, Paul, to finish my jet training.
Beeville, Texas. I had never been there, but that was one of three, I guess, three bases they used to train in. What, Pensacola, Kingsville, uh, and Beeville, and then Meridian. Those four, and they closed Pensacola, so it was those three. Two in Texas, one in Mississippi. And yeah, I knew a couple other guys who went through Mississippi, and nobody had anything good to say about it. To be quite honest with you.
Well, what happened was when I got to Beeville, now I had to leave the family. You got to realize people are looking at me because usually people, when you get kicked out of flight training, you don't get to come back. But obviously, I got to come back because they were wrong. And when I got to Beeville, Texas, you know who the first person I flew with was?
No.
The CEO of the base, because he never heard of somebody getting transferred to another jet training facility to finish their jet training. Well, anyway, I flew with him, and I can fly. So after the flight, I was pretty nervous going up with them because I could tell he was ready to kick me out if I didn't do anything good. Anyway, he asked me at the end. He said, "Were you fooling around with somebody's wife there or something? Because it has nothing to do with your flying." Well,
Okay.
anyway, thank God in Beeville, Texas, I finished my training and I got my wings in Beeville, Texas. How about your winging?
I was in Kingsville, Texas. I guess a good little distance away. I think you're Beeville, Texas. Didn't they close that down and they made it? I told they made it a federal prison.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's what I heard. It's a prison, but Kingsville's still there. It's about 30 miles southwest of Corpus Christi. Population like 26,000. Little place, but that was my world for a while. Yeah, I got winged down there. It was a small ceremony with a few other classmates who were winged at the same time. I think there were like four or five of us, and my parents came down for it. It was a big to do in their life. For me, it was bigger than graduating from college, but far more difficult in all ways. So it was good. You know, it's a part. I'm still growing up at the time, but you're developing physically, mentally, emotionally, because you go through a lot of changes as you go through a rigorous flight training program that we did. And I'm not even talking about landing on the ship. We're talking about just other stuff leading up to that.
That's true. And you said rigorous. I'm going to say it was hard as hell to learn how to fly these jets because you just weren't flying. You were doing air combat maneuvering. You were doing aerobatics. No, what do they call it? Is it aerobatics?
They no, they never use the term aerobats. That's more of a civilian term. You just I just say you're just doing maneuvers. You're just doing loops and just doing maneuvers.
Loops and barrel rolls and all that. Anyway, well, when I got winged, remember I told you a story a long time ago. My dad was in the Navy at 13. And an officer, he was on a ship, and a white officer called him a nigger. My father picked up the guy and threw him over the side of the ship, which would have put my father in jail for a very long time, probably forever. But they didn't put him in jail because he was only 13. But I won't ever forget, I asked my dad to put my wings on me because he came down, my wife came down, my kids came down, everybody came down for my winging, and my father didn't want to put my wings on me. And I was like, well, why not? He said, son, I don't want them to look up my story. I don't want them to look up my story and not give my boy those wings of gold because of me. He said, but I'd be proud to shine your shoes and wash your dishes because that's all he was allowed to do in the Navy when he was 13. So I'll show you a picture. But Lori, my wife, put my wings on me, and you said it. It was one of the finest days in my life. I accomplished something I not ever thought I could do. It was one of the biggest days in my life, Paul. It was incredible.
Yeah, same here. My wings were pinned on by my mother actually. And I guess the irony there is that she was actually kind of afraid of flying. She flew a fair amount, but she was always kind of nervous in the very beginning. And even when I was taking flight lessons on my own, I never told anybody. I just did it quietly. I didn't want anybody to freak out. So I never lied or anything like that, but I just kept quiet. I'm going to keep them quiet.
Well, I have to say, there was one other instance at my winging that I'm sure you'll enjoy. My father drank a little too much at the reception.
Uh,
He went up to the admiral of the base and he said, "You can't call him a nigger no more." For some reason, the admiral understood exactly what he was saying. He wasn't saying it mean. He was saying it with pride. And for some reason, this admiral understood what my dad was talking about. And my father and my wife and my mother, everybody was so proud of little Buddy Drew from Harlem and Brooklyn having Navy wings.
yeah, I mean, because that's the world that nobody knows anything about, really. As you say this, I'm kind of taken back myself. It's like you're in a different world. You're like on the bridge of the Starship Enterprise from being in Brooklyn or Queens or whatever. Hard to even explain to somebody, even now.
Very true. And so once we got our wings, we were then assigned an airplane. And so what did I put down first? F-14s. Well, believe it or not, I could not believe they gave me this. They gave me A6 intruders, which I will tell you is the baddest attack jet in the Navy. What about you? What did you get?
I got the A7. I don't remember what I put down. I think I might have put down F4s or something like that. I probably did. And because the F-14 was just kind of coming into its own. And it was actually when my graduating class, there was one guy, he did get the F-14. And he was the best one of the whole crew, actually. He did get one. And I got the A7. I was happy with that. And I said, "You're headed to Jacksonville, Florida." So I said,
But
"Okay."
you did your A7 training. It's called the RAG, the Replacement Air Group. Now you go from an A4. Now you're going into the fleet. So you're learning how to fly a real
Right.
attack jet with real bombs, real guns, real rockets. And you're getting ready to go defend this country. So tell me about your time in Jacksonville, Florida. How did it feel when you got there? And maybe
To Jack, I thought, looking back on it, Jacksonville was actually great. Jacksonville was great. You're in a replacement air group, and the training and demands are much higher. So everything's kind of going up, 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 and it required, a lot of you. It was a great learning experience. There's a lot that I didn't know. The advantage of people coming through now is that just through technology, you can learn so much. You can learn so much before you show up. In my life, a lot of times it was like no preparation. Okay, here you are. And I would think, boy, it'd be nice if I knew some of this stuff before instead of just like, fighting through everything. But I enjoyed my time. It was a good place to be. Met some fantastic people. Liked the airplane, liked the options. And again, every time you kind of moved up in the stratus of things, it seemed like you were treated a little bit better. So my treatment was good.
Yeah, we were getting treated like officers now. It was
Yeah.
a whole nother game. This was about protecting our country. They weren't trying to get rid of you. They were trying to make you succeed, actually, because if you got this far, they already knew you could fly. Well,
Right.
in the A7, did you have a A7 trainer where somebody sat behind you for your first flight?
They eventually got something called a TA7 train. The first one, no, I was by myself. Very first time by myself. We did some stuff in a uh kind of a janky flight simulator to do some, basic setups. And then eventually, you went out and flew by yourself. Your first time by yourself in a new airplane. That was a learning experience. That was good too. And it worked out, took off, everything worked, landed, nothing crazy happened. That was exciting in itself. You're kind of soloing again, but without the
100%.
instruction.
100%, except you were soloing in a real Navy jet. I did the same thing because in the A6 Intruder, you sit tandem. In other words, I sat on the left and my bombardier navigator sat on the right, but he didn't have a stick. So I was flying solo my very first flight in an A6 Intruder, which was tripping me out.
Right.
Well, I'll tell you what, the RAG taught me so much about flying. And like you said, we were part of a community now. And then after the RAG, right there in Virginia Beach, Virginia, because I went to Oceana, that was the Navy base. And remember, you were single. I brought my family with me. So I had my wife and two children, and we had to move to Virginia Beach. And from the RAG, the Replacement Air Group, they gave me a squadron, and they gave me VA 35, which happened to be called the Black Panthers. And it was the oldest attack squadron in the Navy. And this is when you were starting to get really in this is where you were really initiated into Navy life, because now we were all brothers. There was nobody trying to screw you, and it was just an amazing thing getting into my first squadron, VA 35.
Yeah, yeah. At that point, everybody is cooperating. Everybody does need to cooperate and graduate, and you are together. And the A7 squad, and again, not having people in the right seat or the back seat, it's a fairly small. It's a small grouping. Maybe a dozen. I forget the numbers. Maybe 12 or 15. So you learn different things about different people, and you're working in close coordination every day. In addition, not just flying, but you got ground duties, you got other stuff to do. So it's not like you just go fly and go to sleep. Oh, no, 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 no. The flying might be the easiest part of your day.
100%. The Air Force doesn't do that. We are called Naval Aviators. We are not called just jet pilots. I like saying jet pilots because that's a badass word. But we were Naval Aviators, meaning we had jobs other than just flying. A lot of people just fly. We didn't. We had actual jobs in the squadron, and we had men that were under us, and we really had to work every day in that squadron. We were really getting ready, and I was getting ready to deploy on the USS Nimitz and go out to sea. And it was an amazing life change, an amazing life change.
Yeah, you're to be confident. You had a family. I was single, and it was just enough for me to take care of myself. That's true.
Well, I'd like to thank everybody out there for listening to us and supporting us. Thank you so much for watching us on YouTube, on Instagram, on thank you so much for watching us on YouTube, watching our clips on Instagram, on TikTok, and listening to us on Apple Podcasts and what other medium you can listen to us on. Thank you so much. We truly appreciate it. We have a website called wingmenshow.com. That's wingmenshow.com. And on that website, we have a newsletter. And this week's newsletter is a great one. We really like this one. And it is how to change careers in midlife. How to change careers in midlife. But we also on our website have something called a frequent flow line, where you guys can ask us any question you want. So you can write us a question, and Dr. Paul and myself will try to answer it. But thank you so much for that. Now, we have a section now called the Gouge. And in the Navy, the Gouge is shit you need to know, but nobody tells you. Well, today's Gouge is part of my formula. The first one was education, but this one is education plus hard work. Why don't you start off with hard work, Paul?
Yeah, hard work is it's essential. What we've just been describing is hard. I found it all hard. A couple of little easy sections here and there, but for the most part, you basically got to be able to grind it out, as I say. And it may not be pleasurable. Probably not going to be pleasurable. And then most things worth doing are not simple. So hard work's not necessarily a bad thing. You don't look at it as drudgery. It's just okay. These are my tasks. This is what I got to do. It'll get easier as time goes on. Just get started.
Well, the facts in life is very simple. If you don't work for something, you're not going to get it. And anything you work hard for, you'll be rewarded with. In life, whatever you put in is what you get out. And I will tell you this, I wish I learned it a lot earlier. I had to work hard. I think for the very, very, very first time in the US Navy. Well, the first time I really worked hard is because I was pretty smart. So I got by in college. I did well in college. The very first time athletically I worked hard is when I got picked up to go to try out for the Harlem Globetrotters. If I would have trained like I trained that year for the Globetrotters, I would have been way better in basketball, but I didn't. But my very first hard work was from that Navy, from learning how to fly airplanes in the Navy. And they rewarded me with those gold wings, which makes Dr. Paul and I the top 1% out of the top 1% of this entire country. It was an amazing feeling, but hard work is what got me there. And believe it or not, the easy way out is to do it right the first time.
Right.
Everybody out there, thank you so much for listening to our show. We really appreciate it. And anybody out there, whatever you think is important and whatever you think is beautiful, and especially whatever makes you happy, may you have that today and forever. I pray for peace.
I pray for peace too, Commander Drew, and it's good to talk to you again today, as always. We appreciate all those who listen, like, and share our message. Please give this to someone, share it with a friend or a coworker. Give us a call on the call or contact us on the frequent flow line. We'll try to get a response to you. If you have a good question for us, we'll do our best to answer it. And no matter what you do, straighten up and fly right.
That's a good quote. Education plus hard work minus drugs equals success and the American dream. Thank you once again, Dr. Paul Thompson, my friend. Thank you for your love, your time, and that's something that we won't ever get back. I want to thank all the listeners, too. Thank you so much for doing the show, Dr. Paul. We're jamming.
Well, thank you, Mr. Drew, for inviting me on. Always good to talk to you. And ladies and gentlemen, please remember to like, share, and subscribe to this podcast or any of the podcasts. If you're looking at YouTube, they say smash the like button. Don't smash it. Just press it gently and refer to use as a link to all your friends. You can also look at us on our website, wingmenshow.com, WINGMEN show, SHOW.com, altogether, wingmenshow.com. And we hope to see you in the future. Thanks again, Mr. Drew.
Oh, you're welcome. And we're still floating like butterflies and stinging like bees. Rumble, you badass jet pilots, rumble. May there be peace on earth, and goodwill towards all men and women.